to the Too Spicy for Public clip. We are going to talk about hard lessons learned. And this is did you recommend a zombie tactic to a client and it failed? What did you learn from it? Or did you recommend something interesting and maybe they didn't listen to you and you're still salty about it, which is what I'm going to talk about. So I always go first when it's the spicy clip, so you guys get to decide how mean you want to be. I was working with a client and I recommended direct mail for them. And it was different than what Rachel was just talking about. It was classic top of funnel direct mail. And the reason why I recommended that was A, it's cheap to send out 100 letters. And B, their internal champion was somebody who still intakes paper mail. I work with human capital management, in payroll and tax and HR, there's still a lot of paper even now, but nobody sends them. You get a letter from the IRS, but you don't get a letter from a company marketing to you. So I was like, oh my God, it's going to look like a letter. This is great. They didn't listen. And I was like, yeah, they're like, no, it's going to be too expensive. That's dumb, whatever. And so they just continued to pump more into email marketing and blogging and this and that. And it's just, I guess I'm still salty about it because it takes getting a little creative these days to break out. And they were really frustrated with funnel growth and this and that. And I'm like, you got it. Sometimes you have to do something different. And so that was that. They fired me, so who cares? So what did I learn? I learned that I don't work with companies who won't get a little creative. I put a couple extra questions when I'm talking to people because I want to know, are you willing to do weird shit sometimes? Because then we can work together. And if you want me to come on board and just follow directions, that's not who I am. I'm a strategist. And so it helped me refine my qualification call. So there's my lesson. Okay, Dave, what do you have?
I don't know if this is exactly a zombie tactic necessarily, but it does come back to fundamentals and basic, and it comes down to messaging. So I was working with this client and they had a product, and it's a commodity product. There were 2 or 3 other companies that produce the exact same thing. All of their specs, they fell within certain parameters. Yes, my client had a couple of things that were a little bit, on the fringe and stood out a little bit more than others, but in essence, it was a commodity product. And the challenge is that within this market, people are very reluctant to switch. It's kind of like you're dealing with a bunch of engineers, and it's one of those things of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. Mm-hmm. And it's working. I know what I get. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, whatever, thing you want to do. And I said, look, in order to get people to switch, in the marketing message that I want to put out is here's how we're different. And I can't list comparisons side by sides of all the specs because it was mostly the same. So I told them, you need to do what Hyundai did back in the 1990s and 2000s. I used to work for Toyota Motor Sales. This new upstart from South Korea called Hyundai came into the place, and we're like, whatever. And Hyundai was trying to position themselves as an alternative to the big 3 Japanese manufacturers. But they were not well recognized. Cars, for the most part, are commodity content when you're talking about, the big 3. I'm not talking about a Ferrari or something like that. And what Hyundai did is that they said, okay, fine. You know what? We're going to take your 3-year limited warranty and we're going to bump it to 10. And that's how we're going to break in. And that's the entire message. In fact, I just saw a Hyundai commercial now in 2026. They're still touting the 10-year warranty. But that's how they broke in. And I think Hyundai is probably the number 3 car manufacturer here in the States now. Fact check me on that. I don't know. But I mean, they're not all the way at the bottom where they were in the 90s when they were trying to first break in. And so they didn't listen to me. And instead, they decided to go, and because they didn't listen to me, they decided to go with another agency. This is when I had an agency, and they did the typical LinkedIn, social media posting, blasting all the ads and stuff. But there was no compelling message to it. But the thing is that with marketing, kind of like what we talked about in the podcast, is that we can't operate in a silo. We have to also understand what's our relationship with sales? How do we work with them? But it also may require, because I said, I need a different message. I can't say, look at me, we're the same, switch. Why would you? Why would you switch without a compelling reason? Now, I understand bumping your warranty. I wasn't telling them to bump their warranty from 90 days or a year to 10 years. But I'm like, give me something more on the warranty to show why switching is less risk and a compelling reason to switch because people don't want to switch unless something is broken. Anyway,
Totally.
that's the thing about marketing and messaging is that it may not be just sales. It may have to do with the entire business strategy, and it may require your engineering team to step up to the plate and say, even from like a risk management standpoint, yeah, we're willing to take the risk of bumping or doubling the warranty. The industry standard is 1 year. We'll bump it to 2, and we know we're going to take a hit because of failures, right? But it's worth it in order to break into the market and get a bigger footprint. So marketing isn't just about tactics. It's also about business strategy.
Sure. I mean, we have it too is not a compelling reason for anybody to buy anything ever. Yes,
Yeah.
love it. All right, Rachel, do you have a salty story for us?
I do. I was working at a company and I was on the global team. And so my job was to create campaigns that would not only work in the United States, but also work globally.
Yeah.
So we created this really cool campaign and the theme of it was around not leaving money on the table. And so it was a direct mail kit. So this was in like 2000, I think 10, 11, like that time frame where like direct mail was super hot. And so it included like poker chips and it was like a gambling theme and was like a metaphor. It performed super well in the United States. So we always tested things in the United States first, and then we rolled it out to our global team. So it was my job and we were all vertical based. So it was not only vertical based, but also geo based. So my job was to create these campaigns and then see how they performed, track the results, and then talk to my other peers that were across the world, talk about the performance of those, and then basically give them the assets for them to then translate and then create those campaigns in their own geo. So we talked about this not leaving money on the table and the poker chips and all of those types of things. And I was speaking to my manager and I was like, I just feel like this gambling theme is not going to work in some other geos because gambling, like in some cultures, is just not okay. Like in business and gambling just don't go together, especially in Japanese culture. So we had an office in Japan, in Tokyo, and it was a newer office for us. And we were just starting to get to know the staff there. And with cultural nuances, gambling and the Japanese culture like does not go well together. So my manager at the time was like, nope, we're going to run it in all geos. I was like, gotcha. Um, so I said, okay. So we rolled out the assets. It performed well in the US. It performed well in EMEA. It actually performed pretty well in APAC. And it fell completely flat in JPAC. And my manager came back to me and was like, what happened? Like, why did it fall flat in JPAC? And I was like, told you so, because the Japanese culture does not like gambling in business. And we should have basically, the content inside was fine. We just needed to make a new cover and put a different 3D item in there. But I did not say that to him. I think thinking about cultural norms when you're doing campaigns is really important. So that's kind of my told you so moment.
Yeah. Well, the last panel that I had, we talked about doing business cross-border, and too many people don't consider the culture, or does this market want or need you? It's just a lot of it is like, well, we want to go in this market, so we're going to go into this market, and like that
cram
is
it down their
just,
throats if they like it or not.
right. It's not strategic. So I love that. Yes, a cultural should be part of your strategy. Goodness gracious. Nice lesson learned the hard way for someone else, but that's okay. It's all good. You can feel salty about it all you want. Okay, well, thank you, folks. I hope those of you listening enjoyed the spicy clip and learned a little bit from it. And I will see you folks next month for another little spicy take.